And Maxime Bernier is talking about how he wants to have zero tariffs against the United States, and then reciprocal tariffs are fully supported by Maxime Bernier. Trump could do reciprocal zero tariffs, and that would make everybody happy, right? Everything's would be great if he did that. So interesting proposal there, and that's listening to Senator Kennedy from the other day. That was on a Rebel News interview, which we've got for you this morning. I'll show you that. Is Jason Kenney setting up to take over the Conservative Party if Pierre Poilievre loses the next election to Mark Carney? I don't know. Maybe. Honestly, it seems like he's getting into the fray a lot, and I've got another Jason Kenney tweet today to look at. So it seems like there's reason for movement like that, right? It doesn't seem like it doesn't seem normal to come out of nowhere and rejoin the conversation in this way. So what's going on? What's your game, Jason Kenney? No deal, said Zelensky. When Trump says, hey, like, we've got this deal pretty firmed up here, what do you think? Zelensky says, no deal. I don't believe anybody. So Ukraine is the forever war that we've been warned about by books like 1984. Brookfield has connections to Trump, and we'll let Andy Lee explain. But fundamentally, Brookfield bailed Jared Kushner out of a bad real estate deal years ago. And so, that's going to be very interesting, right? Update on the guy who hacked the GoFundMe. Remember the weird guy who breathed all strange with the, when he was going like, I hacked it and all that. I can't even do it, but I've got the video to show you to remind you. I've got an update on him. He was arrested for trying to hack other people, and you don't mess with Texas. I'll tell you that. Wouldn't it be easy? Well, we'll be starting with Carney and his campaign office opening, and a whole bunch of really just a bunch of scandalous things for Carney's campaign. It's a really scandal-plagued campaign so far, and it's wild that the polls have absolutely no indication that there's a scandal at all. Carney is moving up, more and more and more support. And nobody's actually showing up on the ground. I don't think anybody even knows how to say the riding that he's running in's name. Neepin? Doesn't matter. But anyway, wouldn't it be easy? So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to talk about this Google robot that they're going to put a gun on its head. I am not comfortable with big tech making Terminator robots, because if they want to lock you down, how better to lock you down than when you come down the stairs and the robot's standing there and it's got red eyes. And obviously that when a robot has red eyes, you're now the target, right? And it's like, go upstairs, Mark. Like, hey man, aren't you going to make breakfast like every morning and fold my laundry while I pretend that you're not a Terminator standing around doing menial tasks? I always thought it was weird in the Terminator movies when Arnold Schwarzenegger was pretending to be like a regular human and he would do random human things while waiting or something like that. It's weird. And if I had a Terminator in my house, I don't think I would, but weirder things have happened. I don't know that I'd be able to go to sleep without some kind of barrier that the Terminator couldn't easily break through. Anyway, CTV News is reporting Google unveils a new AI-powered humanoid robot. Expert says expect more in coming years. They're going to make tons of humanoid robots in the coming years. Yay. That's not good. Like, I'm not really excited about this whole prospect of, Terminators for upstairs and downstairs. Terminators for vacuuming. Nah, I'm good. And even the Optimus bot and the other one where they are much more fluid in their movement. And I can't remember, Hamilton Industries or something like that. It's another one. No, I'm not on board with this. It feels like we're building things that are going to walk in and clean out urban areas. And you're not going to win a fight against one of those things, I don't think. Seeing how they can move and what they can do these days, it's pretty wild. Anyway, let's talk not about robots with guns on their head, but about Mark Carney's terrible, awful campaign, scandalous played campaign. Table Salt says, if Trump becomes suddenly polite, agreeable, and respectful to Canada, and the U.S. tariff issue becomes boring, Carney's in trouble. He'll have to run on domestic issues for 4 weeks. So I don't have even a tariffs tab for you. There's no news from yesterday. There's nothing changed, nothing updated, nothing. So that's interesting. Mark Carney now has to, carry this whole day. And the UK is publishing this kind of stuff because plagiarism is a big deal. And if your prime minister is a plagiarist, that's a big deal, right? And if you're plagiarizing at Oxford, big deal. And I guess no Canadian media wanted to pick that up, but Andrew Scheer says front page of one of the biggest London newspapers writes about how Mark Carney plagiarized his way through university, and other than one outlet, Canadian media covered it up, right? So we talked about this yesterday, and nobody's been picking it up. Interesting. One outlet. I wonder who picked it up. Maybe I don't know, Juno News, maybe National Post. Ashley says Mark Carney opens his campaign office in Neepan this week after announcing he'd run in the Ottawa riding. He's addressing volunteers and asking them to help him win a seat in the House of Commons. And there aren't very many people here. There's a lot of news staff in this picture, right? But there's not a huge amount of people. There's no momentum. It's not a big crush of people. There's not a line out the door, right? It is sparse. You can see there's space between where the person's taking the picture and people in front of him. He's got 5, 10, 15 people could fit in the room there if people wanted to be there, right? And there's nobody who wants to be there, it seems, right? So very interesting. And a lot of people are speculating. A lot of these people are staffers. Charlie says, unfortunately, Mr. Carney's campaign team prevented his local media from covering this event, despite it being in the riding where he's running. This is the only time I've ever been barred access to a political event by a party leader. So this is Charlie, and he is a managing editor of Kitchissippi and Ottawa Lookout, and I guess he does opinion pieces in the Ottawa Citizen. And so he's a freelancer, but he was prevented from coming. So people who were interested, if they didn't know you, they're not gonna let you in. They're not gonna take that risk, right? And I'll show you what happened when they did take that risk and somebody confronted Catherine McKenna. It's a good video. It's interesting, but what they're trying to avoid is uncomfortable situations with questions they don't want to answer. Brittany says, important thread, Stephen Bronfman is Mark Carney's revenue chair on the board of directors of the Liberal Party. All links provided. So here's the Liberal list of staffers, and the revenue chair is Stephen Bronfman. So that's a name that is familiar, right? And Brittany says Bronfman has been a close Liberal advisor for years. He's also mentioned in the Panama Papers for tax evasion with a Liberal senator. So if the Prime Minister's engaged in that, and I mean, Bermuda is a tax haven thing, and he does that for money, you would imagine he's sheltering his own money through tax shelters, right? Anyway, interesting that also Bronfman's doing that. We're another class of person to these elites who are allowed to not pay taxes. We have to pay a high tax rate, like 60%. It's pretty crazy. Brittany says this article is from this month. A liberal insider linked to money laundering for tax purposes offshore, right? So also on the Carney donors list is Stephen Bronfman, the Liberals' current chief revenue officer and longtime Trudeau friend and advisor. Who is Stephen Bronfman? He's the cousin to Claire Bronfman. Claire Webb Bronfman is an American heiress, convicted felon, and former leader of Nuxium, a multi-level marketing company and cult base. It was a sex cult. It was a sex cult, remember? With the Smallville actresses. Brittany says he is also the cousin to these two men, Peter and Edward Bronfman. Peter and Edward Bronfman founded Brookfield Asset Management. It's so crazy. It's all so crazy. Laurentian elite in Canada for years. This is the grandfather, Samuel. It was his money that was used to start Brookfield. It eventually became Brookfield Asset Management, where current Prime Minister Mark Carney used to work until recently. BAM, also Brookfield Asset Management is BAM, also laundered money in offshore accounts like Stephen Bronfman did with Trudeau's family money. Laurentian elites are behave like that. She continues, they also bought Jared Kushner, 666 Fifth Avenue. Yes, for real. This number just keeps popping up. It comes up organically, I guess. It wasn't just leased. It also acquired in a shady way. And there's details on that. And Brookfield paid. We'll get to that. These are the tabs that I was talking about, alluding to earlier. We'll get to the details of the Brookfield buying the property for Kushner in a minute. Continuing on. Also, Kushner, Josh Kushner, Jared's brother, helped with venture capital for Stripe, a company Mark Carney sat on the board of directors of this company. Bonus, 3 weeks ago, Bronfman started a climate fund to help counter Trump's actions. The lift restrictions on building pipelines, slow construction of electrical vehicles, and usher in new oil and gas developments. This month, Bronfman is launching a new Jewish climate trust with funds going to support climate solutions in Israel, harnessing that country's ecotech startup nation know-how. So, man, it's interesting. It's interesting how tight this circle really is. Very, very interesting. Raises eyebrows, doesn't begin to quite cover it. Michelle Ferrier, who's an MP she's a candidate for Peterborough for the Conservatives, says this man dedicated his life, Mark Carney dedicated his life to keeping Canadian energy in the ground, making us weak and vulnerable. Now he copies policies to win votes. You can't trust him. So Mark Carney is a mirage, according to the National, I think this is a National Post. It's an opinion piece, but it says, oh no, it's not, it's news. Plagiarism accusations, only the latest evidence. He's been oversold. So that's what I keep saying. Everybody keeps telling us he's the smartest guy in the room, and he sounds like an idiot. And when he speaks, he does not sound like the smartest guy in the room. The smartest guy in the room commands your attention. The smartest guy in the room, you can't wait to hear what he says next. You're like, wow, I wonder where he's going with this, because he's going to have an interesting reason, because he's a smart guy, right? And so like Elon Musk, right? Like think that. And maybe that's a bad example, but think people being interviewed and people hanging on their every word. That's a smart person, usually, sometimes, not always really. But Mark Carney doesn't come off that way. When he speaks, a lot of people are just falling asleep. It's like, well, I hesitate to compare him to Ross and Friends, but he's boring. He is not an engaging speaker. He's bad. Jordan Peterson's better, and he speaks very slowly. But Jordan Peterson's a very engaging speaker. Mark Carney is a bad speaker. Justin Trudeau was actually a better speaker than Mark Carney, believe it or not, with the ums and ahs and everything, really. Here's Mark Carney, just as an example of what I'm talking about. 3 minutes. This is not 3 minutes, but he's talking... I can't remember. I chose this section for a reason, and I'll remember the reason while we're watching it together. Here we go.
So it has everything that we need to do to deliver for Canada. I'm going to tell a quick story. I first came here to Nepean 42 years ago. And I came because I had I still have a friend. I have a friend. The media doesn't believe I have a friend. I have a friend. He's like a real friend. I was his best man. And his family, he's from Nepean. Peter Chiarelli, his wife's coming later. And it's the story of this area, and it's the story of our country. Because his grandparents immigrated to Canada, didn't speak English, learned English, immigrated from Italy, from Calabria. His parents were teachers. His father was a teacher, taught at Sir Robert Borden, taught math to probably a bunch of people who now work.
He's just going off on tangents that don't really matter. But he was saying that the reason he's here is because he had a friend 40 years ago, and he was the best man at this friend 40 years ago's wedding. A real friend, not one of these fake friends, and that's why he's here running for office in Nepean. What? This doesn't speak to anybody's concerns about Canada or anything like that. It doesn't even really allay any concerns about Mark Carney being parachuted into a random Ottawa safe riding, right? This 40 years ago, you knew a guy who lived here and you appreciated the diversity of the area. What are you basing that on the staff who served at the wedding? Like, are you kidding me? Like, what is happening here? So here's Drea Humphreys, and she says, what stands out to you about Mark Carney's wife? This may seem like a little detour, but I don't know. There's Candace Owens is talking about this happening in France, and it's strange, the similarities. She's talking about how, and I'm not going to play it necessarily, but this is kind of a medium big scandal where Candace Owens has been investigating kind of how Macron and his wife came to be a couple, and the story is very odd, and she goes through the whole story here. It's 2.5 minutes or whatever, and basically she concludes that Macron's wife lived as a man until he was 30 years old, and then transitioned to become a woman, and then got together with Macron, and the timeline is weird, and she's been talking about it quite a lot. And so people have been, and I don't know if this is doctored, but this is a Rebel News reporter who's bringing this up, right? And she says, what stands out to you most about Mark Carney's wife? And it's clearly the Adam's apple. Like, I believe she's pointing out the Adam's apple here, right? So it's very, very interesting how that's becoming a mainstream conversation. And it's not like it's unprecedented. And the number of Big Mike jokes and other things underneath this thread and indeed other conversations going on, it seems like, again, if you want to be the leader of a country, you better be willing to play the game. And the game is not the rules of the game. We don't know, right? I don't know. You don't know. That's not something that we were aware of. unless you've been paying attention, right? So I just think it's very, very interesting what's being pointed out, what's being talked about. Isn't that weird? And despite all of this, like, does this look like a campaign? Sorry, this one. The number of people here, does this campaign look energized? Does this campaign look to be riding the momentum that this poll here is talking about? Sorry, this poll here. Brett says Polymarket now has Carney with a 66% chance. Just keeps coming up. It's organic, right? It's now 70, by the way. Yesterday, before I went to bed, I saw 70. Chance of winning the Canadian election. This is insane considering the massive advantage Poilievre had when Trudeau was in power. What do you think caused the monumental collapse, and what do you think Poilievre should do to recover? Well, I think that it's fake polls. I think that it's absolutely fake polls. This does not look like a campaign that is energized. This does not look like a campaign that has swung 30 points in the last 3 weeks, right? Like it does not look like that. And so they want to believe it, fine. But remember Kamala Harris? Remember how she was going to win? Right? Like it didn't work out like that, despite the polls saying different. Andy Lee says, let's talk about Brookfield Assets Management. They don't pay taxes. Brookfield Asset Management, which Carney chaired until January, has not paid a penny in tax for 3 years, according to its financial statements. During the same 3 years, BAM recorded cumulative net profits of more than $1 billion US. So that's pretty wild, right? That's interesting, and that's being reported by Le Journal de Montreal. So very interesting, translated by Andy Lee. And Andy Lee's now also reporting about Brookfield buying 666 Fifth Avenue in New York. And Andy Lee says, help me out. Who owned this property? And it was owned. Hold on. She says, Brookfield bailed out Donald Trump's son, Jared Kushner, son-in-law, in a real estate deal gone wrong, paying over $1 billion in rent up front. Weird. Isn't that strange? Isn't that a weird thing? Andy Lee is responding to Cameron. Cameron says, in 2018, when Carney was still at the Bank of England and 2 years before he joined Brookfield, stop spreading disinformation. But we know of the connections mentioned by Brittany in the earlier thread, right? So disinformation, misinformation, still influence, right? And Andy Lee said, no one said Mark Carney was at Brookfield at the time Trump's son-in-law received a bailout, but he certainly was during the Senate investigation, the one that they wouldn't cooperate with. So interesting. They want to look into all of that, right? And nobody's saying mum. And I don't know, I haven't untangled all this. I don't know who the good guy is or the bad guy is, but it certainly colors what Trump said and what kind of relationship there is between, if there's a relationship, there certainly seems to be conflict of interest, right? There certainly seems to be something that needs to be declared potentially. So weird, right? And here's Rupa talking about this. Tracy's talking about this whole thing, and Rupa says, Ghislaine Maxwell attended high school with the sister of Carney's wife, who's married to a baron that inherited Cornbury Park, the site of the 2013 Wilderness Festival. That same year, when Carney became governor of the Bank of England, he and his wife were photographed at the festival standing next to Ghislaine Maxwell. According to some, this makes Carney complicit in Epstein's pedophile ring. No, that's not it. But Carney's wife having cell phone number, multiple numbers in Epstein's black book, that draws questions. I'm not drawing any conclusions. I'm not saying that Mark Carney is complicit in anything that Epstein had to do, but I have questions about him being close with Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted international sex human trafficker. So, like, I don't need to have anybody conflate what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that picture has questions that need answers by somebody who was the prime minister and now running to be prime minister. Like, you can't just sweep that under the rug and say, oh, well, it's coincidence. No, I don't think so, right? And she says, people sharing this garbage are an embarrassment to conservatives and are not helping Pierre Poilievre. Okay. In fact, I would consider this sabotage inadvertent, could be sheer stupidity on their part or intentional. Your stupidity. Okay, she's the wrong your stupidity is distracting from the real issues in the election. That's just kind of funny, right? But then somebody says, I think it's proper to ask the question, though I'd rather understand if Brookfield bailing out Jared Kushner's 666 Fifth Avenue building is why a phone call went well yesterday, that and moving HQ to New York City, and whether there's backroom dealings. And Rupa responds, Carney was Bank of Governor. So she's responding now to the property at 666, whichever, Fifth Avenue or whatever. Carney was Bank of England governor when the deal between Brookfield and Kushner happened in 2018. So is the suggestion that Carney facilitated the deal as governor? That kind of intervention would be highly unethical, or time traveled from 2020. Just as a quick pause, like, what are the checks and balances that are in place? Did Carney have any kind of influence in Brookfield? Could he have made a phone call and said, this is a good deal, do it or don't do it, or anything to that effect? Like, it doesn't have to be a full endorsement. And again, I think this is like, there are questions that need to be answered, and it seems like Rupa's running cover, which is weird. Anyway, that kind of intervention would be highly unethical, or time traveled from 2020 when he became VP of Brookfield to 2018 to facilitate the deal on behalf of Brookfield Property, which is distinct from ESG investing, which he headed. If you have proof that Carney personally intervened, I'm better than you. If you have proof, then you show it to me. Give me a break. You must provide it. Again, this is pure guilt by association. Yeah, but these are some pretty serious crimes. Like what's being talked about that Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted for is nothing to just look past. And if you've got pictures with her and dealings with her, then questions should be easily answered, right? I only had dealings in this way, and so on and so forth. It should be a bigger deal, I think. Hanif says, I voted for Trudeau in 2015, but stopped supporting him when he invoked the Emergencies Act on February 14th, 2022 to freeze protesters' accounts. Today, I came across Mark Carney's February 7th, 2022 article suggesting the idea of choking off the money. A question for Mr. Mark Carney. Did Mark Carney suggest using the Emergencies Act to freeze accounts in 2022? Any clarification would be greatly appreciated. P.S. I wasn't a supporter of the convoy, but I believe freedom only has meaning if you defend it for your opponents, since everyone supports freedom for their own side. And so this is Mark Carney's article from February 7th, 2022. They invoked the Emergencies Act on the 14th. It's time to end the sedition in Ottawa by enforcing the law and following the money. So he was calling the Freedom Convoy sedition, despite it being protected and called a legal protest by a judge, I think, before they invoked the Emergencies Act against it. Mark Carney is an Ottawa resident and former governor of the Bank of Canada. Where does Mark Carney live? Ottawa? Where? Choking off the money that finances, drawing the line, he says, means choking off the money that finances this occupation. And then he says, by now, anyone sending money to the convoy should be in no doubt you are funding sedition. Foreign funders of an insurrection interfered in our domestic affairs from the start. Canadian authorities should take every step within the law to identify and thoroughly punish them. So he is trying to crack down on people that he disagrees with politically, and I think that he's using the apparatus of the state to follow through with that, or used through Justin Trudeau. Pretty crazy stuff. Yesterday I reported on a candidate under Mark Carney's Liberals who suggested kidnapping his conservative competitor and opponent and delivering him to the People's Republic of China for $1 million bounty, or $1 million something bounty. I don't know if it was $1 million bounty, but I think it was implied that it was a tidy sum. And this wasn't like yesterday that it was done. It was suggested while they were sitting as MPs. The election hadn't been called. It was in January that this happened. And it's only now that he's coming out and said sorry. So that would imply that he's sorry he got caught, not sorry that he said it, right? Like, it doesn't seem like he got caught. And it doesn't seem like he's sorry for saying it. It just seems like he's sorry that people notice now. And so it also seems that the Liberals are going to stand by him and allow him to continue to be a candidate unless the pressure gets too much. So Stewart says the Liberals don't appear to be dropping Chang as their candidate in Markham Unionville per this statement just released by the campaign, calling his comments regarding Tay's bounty as a significant lapse in judgment. But note that he's apologized and committed to, what does it say, stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Hong Kong. So that's kind of bullshit, right? Like, no, you got to get rid of that guy. People, it's on brand. It's what the Liberals are expected to do, because they can do no wrong no matter what they do, and anything that anybody else does is wrong. That's kind of the doctrine of the Liberals, right? David says, an apology for stepping on someone's toe will suffice. An apology for telling people to kidnap your political opponent and hand him over to a foreign government that recently executed Canadian citizens is wholly inadequate. That's kind of conflating incidents. But I mean, it's accurate. It's not lying. That is true. They did do that. Yeah. Pierre Poilievre says Liberal MP and candidate Paul Chiang's heinous call to turn over a Canadian citizen to the authoritarian regime in Beijing in return for a Chinese Communist Party bounty is no accident. It reflects the Liberals' long-standing mockery and neglect of national security for their own partisan gain. Despite expert warnings in a public inquiry, they downplay foreign interference that benefits the Liberal Party and endangers Canadians with their reckless attitude. Carney is weak and compromised by money his company owes Beijing. His silence on these deplorable comments says it all. Carney must fire Paul Chiang as a candidate. The Carney Liberals can't be trusted to keep Canadians safe. They don't deserve a fourth term. Right? Sure. Here's Michael Chong talking about the same thing. And he's saying, this is a little bit hard to read, but he says, Paul Chiang's support for CCP's illegal and unjust bounty on a Canadian citizen is shocking, particularly to the countless Canadians of Chinese descent who have been targeted and harassed by the communist regime. The CCP is a hostile regime that has interfered in our election, kidnapped and executed Canadian citizens, and remains a grave threat to Canada's national security. After the lost Liberal decade of turning a blind eye to foreign interference by the CCP, warnings from experts, and a public inquiry, the Liberals continue to tolerate foreign interference, putting the security of Canadians at risk. Mark Carney's silence on his candidate creates the dangerous impression that he condones this despicable suggestion. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's a pretty big scandal, and it's not the only scandal that's going on in the Mark Carney campaign, and they can't get crowds out. Yet the polls say they're going through the roof, right? Unbelievable support. Here's Mark. He says, not a single Mark Carney sign damaged. I looked everywhere. Nothing. Meanwhile, conservative signs are being vandalized, ripped down, spray painted, and covered up across the country. It's desperate and disgusting. This makes the Liberals look weak and unhinged. It's interesting because this was happening to PPC campaign signs all through the last couple of elections, and people didn't seem upset really then. It didn't happen very much to conservative signs, but it is certainly happening now. Aaron Gunn seems to be a big target, and this one is Roman Baber. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff going on. And Lacey says, in my province, the Liberals are ruthless, shows desperation. So yeah, it's one of those things that it is going to be used to justify a rigged result. They're going to say, look, see, polls, and look, all the people were disaffected and they didn't like the conservatives and they were ripping down their signs. All of these things confirm our legitimate win, and it won't be a legitimate win. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that Carney doesn't win, even though I think that Poilievre is still a globalist. I think Poilievre would probably be better than Carney, but does better than Carney just mean slower degradation, slower decay? I don't know, right? Like Mark Carney's teeth. These pictures are just killing me. The Canadian pension plan. So this is the Western Standard saying all Canadians own shares in Brookfield through Canadian pension plan. And so the Canadian pension plan holds shares in Brookfield Asset Management, the company's Prime Minister Mark Carney chaired before he was elected Liberal leader. Carney, who served as former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's economic advisor since 2020, has been under fire for conflicts of interest involving Brookfield since he announced his leadership candidacy in January. So I'll just scroll down a little bit. There's tweets that back this stuff up as well. In the wake of the Toronto Star article attempting to expose Tory leader Pierre Poilievre for holding investments in Brookfield, it surfaced that the Canadian pension plan, which holds funds for working Canadian taxpayers, also holds Brookfield shares. So isn't that a weird conflict of interest for everybody who holds Brookfield asset management shares through their CPP investments that they're forced to make on payroll, right? Like, Wow, pretty wild stuff, right? So we'll scroll down here. Poilievre's stake in Brookfield is through a diversified exchange trade fund, ETF, not a direct stock holding, as the Toronto Star implied. The Star's misleading allegation against Poilievre is missing the key component. Owning Brookfield stocks directly or indirectly is not the point of the contention. Having a sitting prime minister that holds millions in shares in his former company that also gets awarded government contracts is the point. Right. So, but it's interesting smears, and it's just an interesting side note to see that, the prime minister, it's like the allegation that Dr. David Martin was making against Justin Trudeau, saying that he benefited from every shot being put in the arm because he owns stock in the liquid nanoparticles. I'm getting that wrong, I think. The liquid lipid particles that were the medium for the shots to be injected into the arm, right? Every shot included this stuff that Justin Trudeau had investments in. So it seems like that, but it doesn't, if this is all accurate, it seems very, very bad. It doesn't seem like we should have a prime minister who directly can financially gain from decisions he himself makes for for investments and things like that. It seems like not a great idea. I don't like it at all. Pierre Poilievre, let's talk about the CPP. Poilievre says 3,500 Manitobans came out tonight because they're ready to restore Canada's promise, and they're asking for people to sign. The lighting makes this look like a fake picture, but it is a real picture. It's got Poilievre and his wife and his kids on the stage. And the way it's pictured, there's a grown woman who looks like she's Poilievre's third child, and she's waving like, "Oh, hi, everybody." Anyway, that's. I hope you see her right beside Poilievre. Anyway, and there's all these pictures, a massive crowd at this rally, right? So it looks like a campaign with energy. This looks like a campaign with purpose. It doesn't look like Carney's meandering campaign, right? People are showing up across the country for Poilievre, and that's interesting. That's interesting to watch. Winnipeg showed up, and there's video of the crowd. Sorry, that's potentially very loud. Apologies. Here's video of the crowd. So there you go. Lots of people showing up, and stark difference between what Carney's posting and what Poilievre's posting as far as engagement, right? Brett says, I probably spend way too much time watching political videos so I can make clips for you guys. Anyway, here's Pierre Poilievre dropping a pizza. I just thought it was funny. Here's a funny political clip because they're funny.
Okay, we'll throw this guy in here too.
What, cheese? Just mushroom?
Oh,
Okay,
that's okay. We got another one.
misfire.
Womp womp. I mean, it's funny. Life happens sometimes. Things like that happen. Aiden says hundreds are flowing out the door for Emily Brown's campaign. So it's not just Poilievre who's getting crowds out. This is at the campaign office opening in Burlington. This has never been seen before. People are ready to fire Karina Gould and send Emily to Ottawa. So here is Emily Brown's office, and it looks like there's more people in that office than they were out for Carney in the opening there. I think Dan McTeague's in the front row there. There's Andrew Scheer in the front row as well. So there's some bigger names. So potentially that could be why that there's a big crowd. But still, there are a lot of people showing up to, support conservatives. And again, I think they're globalists, but a lot of people don't. So House of Commons staffer says bigger turnout than Carney had in Neepan. I'm getting it wrong. I'm sorry. Beth says packed room for Burlington conservative Emily Brown. So yeah, lots of people, speeches and the rest. So that looks like a campaign that has some kind of momentum. But looking at the polls, they're dying. That campaign is dying. Do you believe it? I don't believe it. Here's Maxime Bernier. He says, this week I proposed to cut various federal programs and save at least $60 billion to get rid of our $50 billion deficit and start cutting taxes in a sustainable way. By contrast, this is what the whole establishment in Ottawa believes we should do. Globe and Mail is reporting, in these troubled times, Ottawa should consider spending more, borrowing more. This is yesterday, 9 hours ago. Yikes. Absolutely not. Absolutely the wrong move, right? Here's Maxime Bernier, and he says it's all been decided in advance. The Leaders Debate Commission hasn't announced its decision regarding my participation, but host Celine Galipeau of Radio Canada Info, which will host the debates with CBC, already knows the answer and says I won't be there. So they've already disqualified him. They just haven't announced it yet, and they're not going to let him appeal or let him fight for it or anything like that. They're just going to say, no, you can't come. And not because he doesn't met the qualifications. Bernier got 5% in the last election, which was one of the criteria and one that he was missing before. And they keep changing the criteria in order to make it so he's not qualified for whatever reason, right? So if he got 5%, then now he doesn't have a candidate in every riding, and so can't do that, right? And so it's slimy and it feels slimy. And there's that. Here's Ezra and Maxime Bernier, and it's been years. Like, the PPC has been around for a long, long time. And up till now, Rebel News has kind of ignored them. Like, I don't think that there's been many kind of in-depth interviews or anything like that. And so I found it interesting that Ezra was doing an interview with Bernier. The interview starts off with footage of Trump, like clips of Trump. There's a minute talking about how Trump's a really good guy. And, it's hard to like him, though, with regards to the tariffs and stuff that he's threatening Canada with. But, overall, he's pretty good. And, like, the temperature of the country is the country hates Trump, right? So I don't know, because I think that Ezra was opening the door for Bernier to praise Trump. Anyway, the conversation's interesting. We'll listen to a minute or so. Here we go.
Who's tariffs?
I'll tell him, what you're doing, Mr. President, it is hurting your consumers and your businesses. I know that you want to have a new deal with Canada, and I know that you don't want to wait until 2026 for that new deal. I can tell you that we will be ready with you to sit at the table and have a deal right now by putting everything on the table, including what you don't like, Mr. President, the supply management, the cartel in dairy, milk, and poultry. I'm the only leader, Mr. President, that will put that on the table. Poilievre and Carney won't, and if they don't do that, we won't be able to have a deal with President Trump. Let's do it. Let's put the automobile industry in Ontario on the table, the dairy cartel on the table, and also, Mr. President, you said that you want reciprocal tariffs. I'm okay with that. If we impose zero tariffs, you may do the same. You will do the same. So be on the table. No, counter tariffs like, we did dollar for dollar. It is hurting our own economy more than the U.S. Trump and Carney are saying, we love you so much, Canadians. We want to defend our sovereignty against Trump, and so we are ready to tax you more with 25% tariffs. It's crazy. Canadians are paying for that. We must not participate in that trade war and put everything on the table to have a deal. That's the only thing that we must do, but also to add to have a better and more productive economy.
We'll leave it there. I'm glad to see that the Rebel News is interviewing and Ezra is interviewing Max, and that's interesting to see. So good news there. And I think that honestly, that's the only party so far I've heard come together or come up with a different proposal than counter tariffs, dollar for dollar counter tariffs. I don't think we can win a trade war. I think getting into a trade war is a stupid idea. I think we should do everything that we need to do in order to avoid a trade war, in order to maintain access to the United States economy for sale of our products. And if that means we open up our economy to more sale of U.S. products, then I think that that's probably a good idea. I understand there's probably downfalls, but you can negotiate on those details. You know what I mean? You can say, well, we don't want this to happen. We don't want this potential negative thing to happen, so we're going to counter that with this. But by and large, yes, we'll do this. Removing the tariffs on dairy and poultry and all of these other things, I think people would be happy with that. I think it makes perfect sense. And so our leaders, the Conservatives and the Liberals, aren't really proposing anything different, and Maxime Bernier is proposing something different. So I wanted to show you that. So there you go. People's Party of Canada says they are giving a gun away. And I thought, this is fun. I thought, man, I might want to, I don't know what I'd do with it, but I'd put it up somewhere. But I might want to enter this contest. I thought it was fun. So People's Party of Canada says, we invite you to take a shot at our antique 1873 French revolver package valued at $4,500. This unique giveaway promotion was created in conjunction with PPC National Headquarters. Donate any multiple of $25 to the Preventure PPC Association by May 15th, 2025, and automatically get entered into the giveaway. To participate in the giveaway, go to the website here and donate multiples of 25. So 25 you get one entry, 50 you get two, 75 you get three, and so on and so forth. And there's a picture of it. So I don't know. Do you think that's a cool thing. I think it's a pretty cool thing. So check that out if you're interested in a contest to win a gun. And I mean, this is Canada, so I feel like, man, I hope I haven't got anybody in trouble, but I'm trying to promote their thing. So I think it's an interesting way to engage voters, right? Maxime Bernier says it's disgusting, unfair, and immoral on the part of the VCH Healthcare to fire Amy Ham for her views against crazy gender ideology. Says Max, the woke preach diversity and tolerance, but they're the most fanatic bigots of all. The country, or our country, is becoming a woke dictatorship where people are being casually fired because of their political views or simply because they don't agree with the prevailing far left fads. Only the PPC has been supporting women and children against this toxic ideology since 2018. Yep. So that's interesting as well. Man, I've got to say goodbye to the stream really soon, but I just want to get through this next two. Jagmeet Singh got a plane, I guess. They chartered a plane. So weird, right? Looks like they've chartered a 737 from Kelowna Flightcraft. So, And the son of a bench says, who actually thinks Flip-Flop Singh would welcome males to change with his daughters? Yeah, I don't think he would. But this is, I guess, the inside of the plane. And so that's interesting. They found some money somewhere, I guess. And Brett says, Jagmeet Singh, the least popular leader since Justin Trudeau left, thinks he has a chance of winning this election and becoming prime minister. What a moron. Yeah, I don't even want to listen to what he has to say. It's just one of those things where I think the NDP party is looking really weak. They're polling really weak, under single digits now. 9 I saw, and I saw 6 the other day as well. And I thought, whoa, that's really low. 9 seats and then maybe 6 seats. So that would be incredible to watch a party go from balance of power. I think they're in the 20 seats now to down to 6 or 9 seats. That would be what an implosion, right? What an implosion. And I mean, the Liberals too. So we've got some other assorted election news, but we've got to stop the stream. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you tomorrow. And hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful